Middle distant trees. Trees in middle distance are most easily represented as volumes. Become familiar with the basic volumetric composition of trees native to the geographic area, for example, poplar, oak, cypress, fir, willow. The middle distant scene is always the most difficult area to render, and trees help in this respect, as do fences, buildings, and cars. They limit the depth of field, helping contain the scene and thus the amount of drawing that is necessary. It is a useful exercise to observe and sketch trees from real life and then try to represent them in simplified stroke. The shadows cast by the trunks of trees in middle distance effectively indicate the ground plane. Middle distant trees as volumes. A. Familiar tree shapes: willow, oak, poplar, cypress, fir. B. Volumetric composition. Coniferous trees. A. Detailed site study. B. Tonal study. C. Simplified workshop tree. Deciduous trees. A. Detailed site study. B. Tonal study. C. Simplified workshop tree. Shadows cast by trees effectively indicate the character of the ground plane. Distant foliage is represented as a continuous tone of graphic pattern. Distant scenes. Distant foliage is most easily represented as a graphic pattern or tone with a shaped outline suggestive of a vegetative type. The pointed spires of a coniferous forest will differ from the rounded masses of a deciduous hedgerow. Such tones will appear lighter as they recede into the distance to enhance the illusion of depth in the image. Background foliage tones may be used to define the edges of objects in the foreground, such as buildings. Foreground foliage. A heightened sense of depth is available to the artist by using foliage elements in the foreground as well. Here the artist may indicate particular vegetation types using leaf shapes that appear to stray into the picture plane. Develop the positive and negative relationship to highlight the leaf shape. The introduction of a tree limb at the top of an image, or perhaps a close-up palm frond at the lower edge, helps lead the viewer into an image. It has compositional uses as well by providing an edge to the image or balancing an unbalanced drawing. Foreground foliage leads the viewer into the image. Foreground foliage is a compositional element. Foreground foliage used to frame an image. Depicting a variety of foliage types in a workshop drawing. Source: Langevin Community School Greenhouse Study, Calgary. Glass and water. One of the most intimidating requests of the co-design artist is the seemingly simple demand for lots of windows on that wall, or a view into the dining area but separated by glass. Even more daunting is the call for a fountain reflecting pool or dockside scene. The swift and convincing rendering of these elements is aided with some observations about these materials. Distant windows represented as blackened rectangles. Glass. Looking at glass first, note that it has the elusive qualities of both reflectivity and transparency. Glass is ubiquitous in modern architecture. Storefronts, office windows, and glass greenhouses and atriums abound. From the outside, glass may appear black or nearly black and can be rendered this way effectively. Glazing reflects surrounding objects and colors up to about the first 2 or 3 stories. Above this, it will reflect the qualities of the sky. This method works particularly well for middle distance and background windows. Closer windows may be drawn in more detail and display transparency as well as reflectivity. This means that the drapes of blinds within may be visible, and the window frame and any mullions present may cast their shadows on half-open drapes. Interiors may appear almost totally black except for objects closest to the windows, such as a lampshade. A strong impression of sunlight is created as window frames and mullions cast shadows onto drapes behind. Pleats in the draperies are shaded as well. Windows in detail. A mullion patterns cast onto draperies behind. C. Characteristic zigzag pattern of Venetian blinds. D. The shapes of people and objects visible in nearby windows. Water. The reflective property of water can be captured graphically using a few basic observations. First, water rarely produces a perfect reflection, as it is a series of broken mirror-like surfaces due to wave action. The distortion of the resultant reflected image is dependent on the nature of the waves. Rough and rolling on a windy day, or simple rounded patches of black on a calm day. Dark objects reflect as dark patches into the water, and lightly colored objects create reflections of the same color. Typically, the shoreline area of a scene creates a band of darker shade in the adjacent water. Reflections reveal the surface nature of the water. Only a portion of the water's surface needs to be rendered. Looking across an expanse of water, as in a pool or lake, the scene beyond is reflected as in a mirror, except inverted, of course. Remember that the reflected scene must observe the same rule of perspective. Flowing water and fountains further disturb the surface of water, often to the extent that it no longer reflects. Water jets in a fountain contain so much air, in fact, that they even lose the bluish color characteristic of standing bodies of water. For shooting fountains, it is helpful to introduce a lot of white to indicate this spray. Depicting water. A. The tone of water reflections water reflections depends on the tone of the object reflected. B. Representing calm water. C. Representing wind-swept water. Fountains and falling water. Cascading water can be quickly rendered with a band of vertical strokes. Fountains show lots of white and disturbed water surfaces. Blocking out interior features. The construction of cubes in perspective is a useful workshop technique for the accurate placement of interior features such as stairways and furnishings. Such cubes can be determined using the same perspective reference points used to define the walls, ceilings, and floor. Once the basic cube is located, it can be modified by carving it into the desired form, much as a sculptor would carve a solid block of stone away by imagining the hidden forms within the stone. Cubes can be added to in order to create the desired massing. After some practice with this drawing technique and careful real-life observation of interior features, the artist will find that the reliance on such techniques will diminish and that the same effects can be drawn by eye. Furniture. The co-design image begins with a figure which is then surrounded by an environment. For example, if the activity of eating at an outdoor cafe is being considered in an image, a person sitting is first drawn and then the chair is drawn. The figure provides the proper scale for the drawing of the chair and outdoor table. A table can be constructed with a single large cube. For a more realistic look, avoid the common error of showing too much of the tabletop. The form of a chair can be carved out of 2 stacked cubes, and 2 cubes sitting side by side provide the framework for a couch or park bench. Blocking out furniture from cubes. A. 2 cubes piled vertically with a human figure alongside for scale form the basis of a chair. A couch is similarly constructed within 2 cubes placed side by side. Stairs. Rather than have complete perspective accuracy, the co-design image strives to portray the essence of particular environmental features. The careful rendering of a stairway might take considerable time, which would interrupt the flow of design discussion. Therefore, the artist must employ some quick means of representing stairs. The inclined planes of the stairway can be quickly laid out using the cube system. Draw a scale figure mounting the stairs to determine the relative size of the steps. A heavy marker can be used to define the profile of the stairs and darken the individual risers. Notice that as the steps get higher, less and less of the tread is visible. The landing between 2 floors in a split stairway conveniently occurs at the eye level of the reference figure. Add handrails as desired by the group, open ironwork, wood balusters, or perhaps stone. Blocking out stairs from group of cubes. A. The human figure and eye line serve as scale indicators. B. Draw in the landings and flights first as ramps. Subdivide the size of the cubes with diagonal lines to determine the profile of the individual steps. C. Draw in the risers and treads. D. Draw people on the stairs. Blocking out the elements of a scene. A. The essential elements of the scene, in this case stairs and benches, are constructed with imaginary cubes. The cubes themselves are first placed in perspective using the figures as a reference. B. The scene is completed by adding treads, balustrades, and handrails. The stair is well defined by a contrasting background rather than detail. Drawing a stair stringer with projected shadows beneath and treads indicates a stair with open risers. Note that less of the tread is visible as stairs approach the eye line. Spiral stairs are a feature often asked for in community workshops, perhaps because of the romantic image that they represent in their sinuous lines. Using the eye line of the reference figure as a half-height measurement, construct a rectangle 1.5 times as tall as it's wide. This will be the basis for the cylinder in which the stairs will be placed. The ellipses at the top and bottom of the cylinder represent the floor and ceiling openings through which the stairway passes. The curve of the stairway stringer can be drawn in a single stroke that touches one side of the rectangle 1/3 of the way from the top and the other side 1/3 of the way from the bottom. The curve of the handrail follows this exactly. The inner stringer wraps tightly around the central support column. Again, a figure mounting or descending the stairs will provide a basis for estimating the relative size of the steps. Add final details such as the character of the underside of the stairs and handrail detail. Representing a spiral stair. A. The outlined cylinder is twice the height of the eye line. B. Add ellipses at the top and bottom. C. Sweep a curving line around the cylinder to represent the outside stringer. D. The inside stringer curls tightly around the central axis. The handrail parallels the outside stringer. Circular stairs. A. The midpoint of spiral stairs occurs at eye level. B. Similarly, the landing occurs at eye level in the curved stairs. Quick depiction of a spiral stair in a workshop drawing. The underside of the curve is darkly shaded. Civic Center, Calgary. The circle in perspective. A fundamental concept in perspective theory is that the circle is represented as an ellipse. In the previous example, it was noted that the cylindrical form containing the stairs had elliptical openings at each end corresponding to the circular openings in the floor and the ceiling. Round planters, fountain basins, and cafe umbrellas can be constructed similarly. The circle in perspective. A. Ellipses of varying tilt represent the circle in perspective. B. The ellipse is the basis of a patio umbrella. Note the general dimensions of the tables and umbrella. C. The patio furniture is composed of a series of ellipses. D. Add legs, detail, and contrast. Outdoor terraces are scenes commonly called for in co-design workshops, and few cafe umbrellas will evoke the proper mood. Representation of materials. An important part of the workshop image is its ability to represent various materials. The rendering of materials and their textures not only adds visible interest to the drawing, but also enriches the information about the environment under consideration. It is, in effect, making visual notes regarding material. As with the rendering of other features in the co-design image, materials are presented in a quick, simple, and direct manner. A brick feature wall in an indoor garden, for example, does not require drawing each and every brick, but rather a general indication of size and directionality. A small area in the foreground might be rendered in detail, but the rest of the wall would be represented by the horizontal cursing lines and perhaps a wash of the appropriate red marker color. A conscious decision about the direction in which the light is falling allows you to highlight the sunlit edge and render heavier shadow lines at the joints. The variation of light and dark will bring the surface textures alive. There are no hard and fast rules for the placement of texture notes in a drawing. It is a matter of observation of real-life examples and a feeling for composition. The main guideline that the co-design artist follows is simplicity. Representing materials: corrugated metal, stone, paving slabs. Representing materials: cedar shingles, wood sidings, flagstone. Representing materials: Spanish clay tile, concrete or stucco, cobblestone. Representing materials: asphalt shingles, brick, interlocking pavers.